Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, Going Google with UCPS, one of the largest school districts in North Carolina, sponsored by Google. We're very thrilled to have today's speakers, Andrew Seidel from Google for Education and Scott Jacumin from Union County Public Schools. A quick intro to our speakers. Andrew is part of the Google for Education team, where he strives to improve education and make it more universally accessible. Scott is the head of Instructional Technology for Union County Public Schools, where he works to transform the learning environment to an anywhere and anytime personalized learning culture. Before I pass things off, I'd like to mention two quick things. If at any time during the presentation you have questions, please post them in the Q&A panel on the lower right-hand side of your screen. You are also encouraged to follow our live tweets at #ESNWENWEBINAR or tweet your questions and comments to our speakers. Again, the hashtag is #ESNWEBINAR. Scott's Twitter handle, you can see it on screen. It's the third one, the third bulleted item, and Andrew's Twitter handle is the one in the middle. Lastly, please be on the lookout for a follow-up email with a copy of the slides and a link to the archive to review and share with colleagues. Now, I'd like to pass things off to Andrew. Welcome.
Hi, welcome. And first off, I'd just like to thank everyone. We really appreciate you taking the time. I know it's a pretty hectic time of the year for educators, so thank you so much for being here with us today. We really, really appreciate it, and thank you, Christine, for the introduction. So getting started today, I'm going to try to make this as collaborative and engaging as possible. I know that's hard because I can't see or hear any of you, but I promise I'm going to be looking at the questions, and also, if we don't have time to get to your question today, I apologize, but please know I definitely will be answering those in the email, so please feel free to read as many as possible. And yeah, I want to start off today with this question. So asking, what is education? So if everyone would just take a few seconds and kind of just reflect on what this means for you. So a few weeks ago, I was reading a book, and I came across this quote from John G. Hibbons. So he was the president of Princeton University, and he was a great, great leader for education in his time. And he says, education is the ability to meet life situations. And this quote actually really struck a chord with me personally, and coming, I think, from the perspective of what Google for Education is trying to accomplish and what I tried to accomplish during my years in the classroom. And I think when we go through today, this is a great thing to come back to and think about is, well, what are we really doing in our classrooms? What are we really striving for with our objectives, and what's the end goal here? So right now, you probably see this big, bold number and percent sign, 60%. And I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, what does this mean, 60%? And this is actually something that on the Google for Education team, we really think about a lot. And if anyone wants, we could even use the little chat box, but any guesses on what the 60% represents? Can you guys hear me? Okay, I'm not sure if you guys can hear me or not.
Andrew, I can hear you just fine. I think you're going out.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'm sorry. For a second, I got a ping that said we cannot hear you. So I've heard a few good ones. I think my favorite is not a clue. But so this 60%, kind of step on to our next slide before we answer. And thinking back to that first quote is, what are we really trying to accomplish? And from that quote of, well, we're trying to prepare people for their futures to be successful in the 21st century workplace, in higher education, to be productive members of society. And when we go back to that 60%, it's actually that 60% of the jobs that our students today sitting in classrooms will be taking after they graduate from high school, or whether that's going into higher education, 60% of their roles don't exist today. So as educators, I think this is one of the greatest challenges that we could possibly face, because we're thinking, okay, I know that I have this audacious task ahead of me to prepare these students, and oftentimes we have too many students, we don't have enough time, we're lacking resources. We're thinking, how am I going to best prepare them so that when they leave my classroom, they're going to be successful, whether that's going into higher education or whether that's going straight into the workforce. But how do I prepare them for a position, but I don't even know what these positions are going to look like. I don't know what technology they're going to be using. So this is something that when we look at it, wow, this really is a big question. So in many ways, we're realizing that technology has already transformed the way that we operate in the world every day, the way we communicate, the way we participate, the way we experience the world. And one of the most beautiful things I feel is that technology really does a great job of removing barriers. So I remember growing up in grade school and middle school, if I wanted to research a topic, I would go to our library. And in many instances, I went to a really, really small school, so a lot of times we didn't have the book on the topic, or the entry in the encyclopedia was my only source of information. And once I'd finished that article, it was over. And looking at now what could happen, I just think technology has opened up worlds of information for our students and for all of us. So now we're thinking that students have the ability to explore and learn more deeply and more thoroughly. And this slide just shows a few examples of how technology is changing our world. So the first image, we actually see one of our Google schools, which is Fort Sam Houston in Texas. It serves a very heavily military population, and they choose to use Google Apps and Chromebooks because it enabled their parents to stay connected to their students' work, even when they were deployed overseas. So we see a dad sitting in Afghanistan, and he's able to collaborate and share with his son and with the son's teacher, even though he's in a different country across the world. In the second example, we're seeing that a lot of times technology can allow for other stakeholders to be involved in education in ways that they couldn't before. So the second picture, you can see that we're using a Google Hangout to bring experts into the classroom. So for instance, you can bring a local political figure in to speak with a government class, or have a surgeon talk to your biology student. And the third picture you might recognize, it's a painting. It's George Seurat's A Sunday on the Grand Hat, which is typically housed in the Art Institute of Chicago. And like most of your students, I've never been to the Art Institute of Chicago, and I may never see this painting in person, but now we can all see this painting and study it in detail. Google's taken high-resolution photos of many paintings as part of the Google Art project. So now we're all able to zoom in on this painting, study the details, and we can really teach students what it is to be the pointillism movement and how they can use that in their own artwork today. And similarly, we don't all have the luxury of traveling to the Galapagos to learn more about sea turtles, but we can all open up Chrome on any device with Travel with Maps and explore and learn about these islands and other places around the world. So what can we do to help transform education? And looking at it from the most organic level with Google, Google's mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. So here on the Google for Education team, we really believe that open technology is the key to improving education. But what does it mean for a school to go Google? We asked our Google schools and they told us it's about more than technology. Oftentimes, the first piece is adopting a culture that extends beyond the classroom walls. It's about openness, curiosity, and working together. Going Google in education means four things. The first is empowerment, truly helping students to discover a world of infinite resources and knowing that it's at their fingertips. The second is choice, being able to use the right device anytime, anywhere. Number three is teamwork, so having students, teachers, and parents able to work together in real time, regardless of location, regardless of device. And four is scalability, so bringing in technology that's affordable and easy to manage. And we'll take a couple minutes to discuss each of these. So when I look at what our team does for education, the first piece is empowerment. When you have access to digital content, it empowers students and gives teachers the tools for individualized learning. It's important to help students discover the world of infinite resources and the changing role of the teacher, from a lecturer who simply disseminates information to more of a facilitator who really coaches and supports students as they explore information. And looking back to my years in the classroom, I always think one of the greatest stresses I had was time. That was the one variable that I just absolutely could not control. I had a certain amount of days, a certain amount of minutes with my students in my classroom, and I felt a great stress caused by that because I had, for example, 120 students, and I had 40 textbook sets. So when the students walked out of my room, oftentimes I felt like learning stopped, an iron curtain dropped on their capabilities. And if we think about what can happen with digital content now, students can access that book whether they're on their way to soccer practice, or whether they're sitting waiting for their sister at karate practice, or whether they're at home on their parents' PC. They can access Chrome, they can access all of their content, and they can work just like they would be working if they were in the classroom sitting with their team. So that's really one of the most beautiful pieces for me, is that idea of empowerment. Next, Google believes in giving choices for schools. The ability to use the right device anytime, anywhere. Because what is good information if it isn't accessible in the classroom? Teachers can only change the way they teach if students have reliable access to a device. So we want teachers and students to use the right device, whether that be a laptop, a tablet, phone, or desktop, and to be able to use the device in school, at home, or on the go. We believe that students' information and learning environment should be easy to access and secure, whether they're using a device like a laptop, a tablet, etc., whether they're in the library, whether they're at home. We want the technology to get out of the way, so students and teachers can focus on the content and on working together. And with that in mind, Google solutions work across platforms. So schools can use their existing equipment and keep their options open even as they commit to new device deployments. The next piece about going Google is teamwork. And for this, I know when we're doing our speaking engagements, we always think about a study, and it was in the 1970s. They asked the Fortune 100 companies in the United States, what are the biggest skills that you want recent college graduates to have to come into your workforce and be successful? So if anyone wants, we can use the chat box again. Any ideas to think, in the 1970s, what are the big skills that these Fortune 100 companies would want recent college grads to have to come in and be successful? Let's see if we can get some participation going. Okay, so Jody, thank you. Communication skills, good one. I wish I had popsicle sticks with everybody's name. I just started calling people out. Okay, well, it looks like someone said communication, so that's a great guess. Actually, in the 1970s when they asked people, the three biggest skills they wanted were reading, writing, and arithmetic. So kind of the 3 R's. And looking at those skills now, I imagine they basically wanted people to operate like little computers, just to be able to type things up and compute numbers. And so they did the same study recently, post-2000s, Fortune 100 companies in America, and they asked, what are the big 3 skills you want students to have come into your workforce? And the answers have changed dramatically. Now, we're hearing CEOs and other C-levels saying, we want students to have teamwork. We want them to be able to work well with others. We want them to have interpersonal skills so that they know how to communicate effectively, that they're not offending people. And the third piece, and I think my favorite, is that they wanted them to be problem solvers. So we're thinking, wow, like this skill set has really changed and what we need to be successful in today's world. And how are we changing education so it's fitting and so it's keeping up with that? So teachers say that being able to work together in real time using Google Apps is the most profound change in the way they teach and the way students learn. Collaboration fosters teamwork, problem solving, and organization. Key skills for the modern world that we just discussed. So how can you take collaboration to the next level? Giving real-time, across the world, anytime and anywhere access. One example is Google Docs. So in this, we see that multiple students can work together in the same document at the same time. This makes schoolwork more like real work. Students can learn more by working with a set of classmates with diverse perspectives. And they learn how to get group work done. Who is the leader? Who's the editor? Who has the right to change what work? These discussions are the same kind they'll have at the university and in the professional world. Finally, going Google is about scale. Having technology that's affordable and easy to manage. With the school's budget, the price of the device matters, as low-cost solutions give more students an opportunity to go Google and to attain these skills that we've been discussing. But scalability and device and content management are equally as important to keep total cost of ownership low and to allow IT teams to manage the surge in device deployment. And Google makes devices that are quick and easy to set up and manage. With Google Apps at the foundation, it's easy to manage 10 or 10,000 devices with our admin tool. You can set up a whole classroom of tablets or our Chromebooks in just minutes. Because devices are intuitive to use, students get started using them quickly. No need to run around doing troubleshooting in every classroom, and with 24/7 online and phone support, we can help out if there are any challenges. This is the sort of offering that means you can easily scale your IT. So when I'm looking at Google for Education, I feel that there are really three pieces of it. The first one is this idea of the platform. So that's our suite of tools. We have Gmail, Calendar, Drive, Docs. And once we have that platform in place, I think that's the piece where we see the culture shifting. We see people looking at collaboration and looking at the skills changing. And then I see devices as just access points. We're seeing that people love using Docs, they love using Drive, and they love being able to work together. And a device should simply be a way to access those things. And lastly, we're seeing content, because we know that educators need great content to teach effectively. So how can you start to go Google? Firstly, we offer schools a free suite of services called Google Apps for Education. These apps include Gmail as your email service provider and productivity tools like Docs, spreadsheets, and presentations for content creation. Since Google Apps for Education are all web-based, it means they are available from any device with a web browser. They're also great for collaborating because multiple people can be creating and editing at the same time. And Google Apps for Education are incredibly popular in schools. Today, there are over 30 million Google Apps for Education users found in 180 different countries. Over 80 of the top 100 U.S. universities are using Google Apps for Education, including 7 of the 8 Ivies. And on an international scale, students in more than 180 countries are using Google Apps. And not only are Google Apps a powerful, transformative platform for schools, the price is right. Google Apps for Education is 100% free and without ads. Devices are the next piece, and we're excited to say that we now have many choices of devices for schools. With a multitude of Chromebooks and the new Nexus 7 tablet with Google Play for Education, going one is easier than ever. So first off, we'll discuss Chromebooks. A lot of times, thinking about a few years ago when I heard Chromebook, I thought, what does that mean? So first off, we'll explain a little bit about what they are. Chromebooks are web-based computers that are great for schools because they're easy to use, manage, and customize. With Chromebooks, students can open the lid, sign in, and they're up and running in under 8 seconds, which allows your teachers to dedicate more of their valuable time towards instruction. When you're using Chromebooks, everything is stored on the web. So it doesn't matter which machine you use. When your students sign into any Chromebook, they're taken to the learning experience that you have designed for them based on your curriculum goals. The idea is for the technology to seem invisible in the classroom, just another tool in the class. And Chromebooks are great because they're shareable and incredibly simple to use for both students and faculty. Chromebook adopters consistently tell us that they just love the devices because they just work. And we're now offering a wide range of Chromebook laptop devices. Samsung, Acer, Lenovo, ThinkPad, HP, and more. The hardware specs in each of these devices are a little different. They vary in terms of screen size, ports, weight, etc., but all of them are running the Chrome operating system. And all of them are managed through the Google Apps for Education account by using a Chromebook management license. So despite the differences in hardware, the user experience and the management experience will be the same across.
Well, hello. I'm Scott Jacumin with Union County Public Schools. We're scrambling here a little bit to make sure that we figure out the new version of WebEx, and it looks like Andrew has lost his audio and has continued to move through some of his slides. I think what we'll do is I'll move forward with some of the information about Union County Public Schools, and If you can hear me in the chat there, just a couple of folks let me know to make sure that I'm not moving forward without audio. So, Sean, thanks for letting me know that you can hear me. I appreciate that. I'm going to advance to a slide that I have here for Union County Public Schools and tell you a little bit about our district and where we've come from and where we currently are, because anytime you're going to move to a new platform or you're going to move toward a one-to-one environment, it's a long process, and you can't expect it to happen overnight. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of districts make. We're a suburban community of Charlotte, North Carolina. We sit right on the South Carolina line. We've got a great east-west divide in our demographics. We've got schools in the eastern part of Union County that are 95% free and reduced lunch. They're very rural farming communities. And as you move to the western side of Union County, which is very large, we butt right up against some very affluent suburbs of Mecklenburg County and have some, really affluent schools on that side. So we've got a wide range of students and a wide range of clientele within the district. We have about 42,000 students and 53 schools. We operate currently with 12 high schools, one of which is an alternative school, and 11 middle schools. We started our one-to-one, our planning phases began back as early as 2007 and 2008, but we actually began a pilot program in 2009, and we started in a Windows environment running on Windows servers using Active Directory to control all of our devices. And it's a fairly sophisticated environment to be in, and it takes a lot of manpower and human capital on the tech side in order to make sure that all those devices work. When you're talking in an area of 26 to 30,000 devices that you got to manage on a daily basis, that can be quite daunting. And that was one of the things that sort of appealed to us as Google came on the scene. The manageability of it really was attractive to us. In 2010-11, we gave out netbooks to all of our sixth graders, and that was about 3,000 devices. We started in middle school because middle school is a fairly homogeneous group in that all sixth graders are on the sixth grade hall and they rotate among their teachers throughout the day. If you begin in a high school environment, it can be very difficult because while your freshmen are usually together, you've got sophomores in senior classes and seniors that are retaking sophomore classes, so it's more difficult to roll out in high school. Later that year, we handed out devices to our 7th and 8th grade after our pilots were successful. We were using a netbook, a Windows-based platform at that time, and we began using Google Apps for Education, and that really sort of led us to look at the advent of the Chromebook and begin to think about what we were actually using our devices for. And when we looked at the use of the software on the PCs that we had in our district, predominantly everybody was using a web browser to access most of their content anyway. So it made sense for us to look toward a platform that utilized that browser more efficiently and allowed us to manage sort of just the browser rather than having to manage all of those PC devices. We currently, in 13-14, we moved to a Lenovo X131 Chromebook. It's a really rugged, robust device. We had learned that kids can be really hard on devices when you issue them to them and they don't purchase them. So we went with the most rugged device that we could find, and that's proved to be a fairly good choice for us. Our current state of affairs is that we are in a one-to-one environment in grades 6 through 12. That's approximately 26,000 units. And we are looking at our elementary environment for our next refresh and piloting several types of tablets, but the Google environment's very appealing to us, and we're taking a look at, of course, some Android-based tablets in several classrooms and seeing what that's going to look like for us moving forward as we move into our lower grades where our students definitely need access to technology. So we have our netbooks that we used in our one-to-one pushed down to our elementary school, so the children in grades 3 through 5 do not take their devices home. Students in grades 6 through 12 are issued a Chromebook, just like a textbook at the beginning of the school year. They carry that device throughout the year and turn it in at the end of the year. We've really sort of tried to transform the learning culture of our district, and we're very lucky to have leadership in the district that sees the value in this transition, because we've got to prepare our children for the jobs that we don't even know what they are yet, as Andrew was talking about earlier. The internet has changed the way we access information, so we've moved from acquisition to synthesis. And it used to, the old paradigm is that, you know, the teacher is the bestower of knowledge and shares that with the students, and some get it and some don't. But in the new paradigm, that information is readily available for them to go access, vet, make some determinations about whether it's valid or not, and then move at their own pace and let the teacher facilitate their own learning. So we're working toward what we call a my size fits me learning culture. So we had to begin to dispel some of the myths. I see a few questions that are in there, you know, and what happens when the student has no internet connection at home. We were in the same paradigm even with a Windows-based machine. So the fact that a Chromebook accesses primarily through the internet was almost a moot point for us. I do have a little more information about how we use the Chromebook in a future slide, but a lot of people don't understand. We had to dispel the myths associated with the Chromebook. A Chromebook has a hard drive. A teacher can share a document or an assignment with a student, and they can take it home and work offline. And when they hit our network the next day, it syncs with their Google Drive account, and all that information is then moved to the appropriate place or shared with the teacher. So one of the things we'd really like to see is the government move forward with some equity as far as internet access for students, but that's sort of one of the last things that we are beginning to approach. By offering this access, we've been able to maximize our learning outcomes. We've been able to build our own virtual school that allows some students that normally wouldn't be able to work in a traditional school day environment. It allows them to move forward in their academic career and even graduate from high school. We're currently up to about 20 courses that we teach fully online with our highly qualified teachers here in Union County, who spend a planning period a day working through with the students that are taking those courses, and that continues to grow. Every semester we add new content to that. We've seen a couple of demographics really change engagement. Obviously, the students, at first it's a big deal. Ooh, I have a computer, and that shininess wears off the toy. I'm not gonna say that it doesn't, but soon they begin to realize if the teachers are adequately trained and sharing the information in a meaningful way with the kids, they begin to realize this is how I do my work. This is my textbook. These are my resources. This is where I turn in my work. This is where I take my quizzes. It's where me and my family access the information that the teacher's wanting to share. So, you know, my son was in elementary school. He brought home a composition book, and I signed his reading log, and we looked through what he was doing. And now he's a sophomore in high school. He has a Chromebook, and he comes home, and we log into the teacher's Moodle page. We take a look at what's on tap. We check his Google Calendar and see what he has coming up that week. And it's just a different way to work than the paradigm that we were working in when he was a younger child. And it really has taken hold in our district. It doesn't mean that we don't have some challenges moving forward, especially with digital content and the transition that North Carolina is trying to make to enhance some digital curriculum. And it combines the classroom and the community. So with those virtual opportunities, we are able to have our community colleges and professors in the community colleges work through some of our academies with students that have access that can attend courses from any high school in our county and then not have to drive or attend a central location like a career center. We started with a vision of leadership, and we realized one of the first things we would have to do was build in some human capital, and that meant that we needed a lot of engineers and technicians in order to handle the number of devices that we were going to hand out. It meant that we needed instructional technology facilitators to work with teachers and to narrow that ratio down. We currently have an instructional technology facilitator for every middle and high school combined, so that one person serves those two faculties. And at the elementary, we have one facilitator for every 3 schools, and hope to lower that ratio as we move forward. But there has to be an upfront investment in that human capital and the expandable infrastructure. We had to go in and completely redo a wireless network. It took 4 years, but we currently have a ubiquitous wireless network on every campus in Union County. Our kids can use their Chromebook in our football stadiums, our gymnasiums, our commons areas, any building on campus, in any classroom. They have access to the wireless, and their Chromebooks pass off from one wireless access point to another seamlessly as they move. I see a question about keyboarding. We do teach keyboarding more as a skill base than a class. We've got several applications that we push out, which is one of the joys of the console. We push those applications out to the students, and they practice their keyboarding. I'll be honest, my son learned to type by being issued a Chromebook. At first, he sort of Andy Rooney did the 2-finger for a while, and it became such a necessity that he slowly got his hands down on the QWERTY keys, and now he's a fluent typer. And that was sort of what we call a soft skill, a byproduct of having the devices on a daily basis. It's not that necessarily he had to be taught keyboarding. It was something he had to work through and learn in order to be productive in the environment that we had in place in the classrooms. Professional development is huge, and you can never have enough time to do all the professional development that you would like, especially when counties have multiple initiatives through curriculum or human resources and things that they need time with teachers with also. But we are lucky in that about once every 2 weeks, teachers give up a planning period and work with a facilitator, and then we move in and coach with individual teachers. We do sessions online. We have full-blown online courses for staff development that are self-paced. I see that I lost sound. If anyone else can hear me, let me know. It appears that my audio is working in what I see here. I certainly hope I didn't lose it also. Thank you. Appreciate that. Training teachers and getting them to work in a framework where I taught for 18 years, and you know, we all build that file cabinet of good lessons. We throw out the bad and we keep what's good, and getting teachers to realize that you don't have to throw away what you've built over 20 years in order to transition to a digital environment is not an easy thing to do. You just got to show how technology can make their life easier. Those same lessons are still utilized. So it's interesting to watch teachers make that transformation. And you'll hear folks say, oh, younger teachers are digital natives. They grew up with it. The most success I have is when we find a teacher that's near retirement that has bought in and has developed a skill set, and then the other teachers on the hall look and they go, well, if she can do it, anybody on this hall ought to be able to do it. So I think our younger teachers are just as challenged as anybody else that's has chosen education as a career. It's interesting to watch them learn and grow and see what technology can do for them. If you show them just a little bit about how it can shorten their day, you generally can get them on board. Our next big transition is learning spaces. Once we had devices in every child's hands and we had teachers that were trained to teach with those devices, we still had those 20-year-old desks that are right-hand only and small enough that they barely can get a manipulative on the desk along with the Chromebook. So we're beginning to look at furniture and transforming that classroom so that it's more conducive to a my-size-fits-me learning area. With perches, soft furniture, areas where students can move and collaborate in groups together rather than the old nice straight rows with the right-handed desk. And we're running several pilot programs and have renovated some classrooms to see how those work, and they're really paid off because we're already engaging in some new construction and taking what we've learned and trying to apply that to what we're building moving forward, because the devices in the hands of students are not going away. And finally, anytime access. We've tried to work closely with some telecom corporations in order to get reduced rates for students and provide them with internet connectivity when they're at home. And that's proved to be very difficult for all districts that have engaged in those discussions. I do believe they're getting more and more productive in the days coming when the government's going to help. We provide free lunch for folks. We should provide them access to information also if we're going to truly be equitable in what we're trying to do. A lot of folks ask, why did you not go with bring your own device? And that would not meet our needs as far as equity. So moving forward for us off of our logic model that we had there is to create some of these high impact learning environments where every space is a writing space, where there are multiple monitors in the classroom, where there's furniture that moves and can be configured sort of from a community center aspect. Is the way I think about it. Our church has a place where we can put all the tables out beside the wall and line dance if we want to, and then we can put them back in nice straight rows if we need to take a state online assessment. So we're trying to work really hard on these environments so that they're more conducive to the technology. We've also implemented 4 years ago an Instructional Technology mentor teacher program, and what we do is we take those folks out of the classroom. We take them to another school. They have a day of staff development. They do classroom walkthroughs and look at how other teachers are using technology. Taking a look at just what's teachers are trapped in those four walls, and it was hard to find the money for staff development where you pay for a substitute and move those folks from their building 6 times during the year for a full day of staff development. But what happens is, over 5 years, I've now got 4 teachers on every 6th grade hall that have been through some pretty intensive staff development. They've been able to visit other locations and see how technology impacts learning in those environments. And that's proved to be really successful. So we're trying to build capacity in our buildings. The cloud-based resources, our state initiative is something called Home Base that they're trying to put in place, and that's to buy digital textbooks and ebooks and provide that for all districts in the state of North Carolina. Currently, we partner with different textbook companies to provide digital textbooks and digital learning modules for our own children. We use a learning management system through Moodle, which we brought in-house. We host all of our Moodle instances on our own servers, and teachers are provided with a page and staff development for all digital resources to be placed in a location where students can access that content. And they increasingly work more and more in the Google environment, where it's as simple as setting up a share folder and sending a document out to all children in your 3rd period class, asking them to complete an assignment and drag it back into the folder, and it's turned in. No paper exchanges hands, no printer, no toner, no ink, no down the hall to get my paper. It's seamless, and it's really proved to be a pretty efficient working environment. We talked a little bit about anytime, anywhere access and synthesis, not acquisition, changing. In North Carolina last year, we began an initiative called Home Base. And Home Base is an attempt to put in a student information system, learning management systems, digital curriculum, digital assignments, assessments through SchoolNet, data analysis, and complete professional development online. And all of this is done through web-based components. So moving into an environment where our students were working in a web-based environment made sense to us. The platform of Google's ecosystem in education, Andrew had a very similar slide. to this. And, you know, we've talked about the Lenovo device. We've talked about Google Apps for Education, the ability to collaborate and communicate with it. The content, the Google Web Store provides a ton of apps that are more and more sophisticated through the advent of HTML5. But one of the things that is very appealing to us about Google is our teachers often in the netbook era were finding the app of the week. Oh, look what I found, and you can do this with your students. And we were constantly vetting those applications in order to make sure that they met the Common Core standards and that they were able to run on our devices at the current configuration that we had. What's cool about Google Apps for Education is that you can do with Google Draw most of what you can do with Museum Box. You can do with a Google document most of what you can do with Mind Mapper. So you can build a lot of that content in, and all we have to do is train on one platform, and then we let those high flyers venture out, vet those new apps that are becoming available. We lock our web store down, and we control which apps go to which students through the console management system, which is a piece of cake. So you drag in the application that you want all elementary students to see, and when they authenticate, they end up going directly back to, they only see that app. I'll finish up with the last things with Google Apps for Education for us are obviously the ability to be organized and share, the creativity to be able to produce something digitally, the ease of use, anywhere, anytime management, storage and accessibility, and the application management was a game changer for us. And we're beginning to even explore Google Class some. With that, I think I'm going to pass back to Andrew. I believe we've got him back, and he's going to roll back just a little bit. I'll take a look at your questions and do my best to answer some of those that you have down here in the chat window while Andrew finishes up.
Okay, so I hope everyone can hear me. Yeah, I'm just going to go back, I guess, quickly and present a few pieces that I didn't get the chance to, and then we'll move on to some Q&A. So I'm most excited for that piece. And I think this is the part I really want to share with you guys. I know you probably were looking at this slide in silence for a few minutes and thinking, what's going on here? But yeah, a big piece of what Google for Education is now is what we call Google Play for Education. And what that means is that teachers need access to great digital content. So with Google Play for Education, we've created a content store just for schools, giving them access to a huge variety of K through 12 content and the tools they need to find the perfect material for any lesson. So if you guys look at these little pictures here, you can see that there are small yellow check marks, and then it says EDU. So there's a huge selection of Android apps, and we worked with a group called CUE, stands for Computer Using Educators, to review and categorize thousands of apps for the classroom, from personalized reading apps like RazKids, to creative tools like Creative Book Builder and WeVideo, to classroom management apps like Socrative or Class Dojo. In addition to the 1,000 of apps approved just for schools, you also get access to 1 million apps from Google Play. So if a teacher thinks Angry Birds is maybe the best way to teach physics, it's easy for them to get that app in students' hands. And probably the most exciting piece for me is now teachers can rent K through 12 books from classic literature to recent textbooks. So if you're looking for a reading material, you can choose from the thousands of K through 12 books in the Google Play for Education store. We've worked with major publishers to make a huge selection of titles available for rental at affordable prices, and many are free. So instead of buying a classroom set of books that a class 3 years from now might want to read, teachers can customize their reading materials so their students will always be interested and always be engaged. And in addition to the books available for rental, you can get access to thousands of classical books available for free. And it's nice to know that Shakespeare is never more than a couple of clicks away. And once the book is reassigned, students have the flexibility to read it on any device through the Google Play Books Reader. So if your tablets stay at school, the students can log into their school account from their web browser at home and pick up right where they left off. Students can take notes, highlight, look up word definitions, and much more. And the last place I'll discuss is Classroom. So Classroom is a new tool that just came out, and it's the first time that Google, as far as the Enterprise or Google for Work team, has ever created something specifically for vertical. So we are really, really excited in the education team to have this. And we did this for a few reasons, but mainly because teachers told us that they loved using a lot of our technology, but at times it was hard to stay organized. The workflow just wasn't smooth as far as creating assignments and having students share those back and making copies, and it was hard to communicate with students. So we created Classroom so that teachers can easily create a class, add in their students, have a repository and a central place for students to go to get the content, and then also make it easy for them to create assessments or create assignments and push those out to the students. So that's just a little bit of what Google Classroom can do. And Google Classroom is now a free tool inside of your Google Apps for Education account. So just like your Gmail, just like Docs, just like Drive, it's right there, and teachers can start using it right away. So yeah, that's everything for me. Thank you so much. Sorry about the technical difficulties too. I'm not a WebEx expert.
All right, thank you, Andrew and Scott, and thank you again for everyone who was so patient with us while we were resolving our technical difficulties. We'll now begin our Q&A session. So my first question goes to Scott. The question is, does your school district have Google Plus open to either staff and or students? If so, do you have a vision or accountability policy? How are teachers using it?
So we have opened Google Plus in some locations, but not for the entire district, and we've run some tests to control it within our domain to make sure that folks outside our UCPS.K12 domain cannot access Google Plus from within. Obviously, the social media platform makes folks comfortable and they're used to that environment. We've found it to be honest with the advent of Google Class and having a learning management system and the ability to communicate within just about any Google document that you have. We encourage teachers to stay in that platform, and while students can still communicate with each other in a document, it tends to keep them focused on what the learning objective is of the teacher.
Great, thank you. This next question, I think either of you could answer this, but it was directed to Andrew. Is Google Classroom usable for school districts that use two domains, one for teachers and one for students?
Yeah, I can answer this. And Scott, if there's anything you would like to add, please let me know. So right now, Classroom, it kind of depends on how you define domain. But what I like to say is Classroom is designed to work with domains that are under one management console. So for example, you can have one management console and you can have subdomains under that. And in that instance, Classroom will work. Right now, Classroom will not work if you have one management console that controls all of your student accounts and another management console that controls all of your teacher accounts. This is something that we know is a major issue. It's a roadblock for a lot of districts, and it is something that's critical for us, and that is on the roadblock for the Classroom team. They're working hard to make this work across domains. As of right now, though, it's made to work with all of your domains, but they have to be under the same admin console, if that makes sense.
Great, thank you. Scott, next question for you. Oh, were you about to continue answering? Okay, sorry. Next question for you. This participant wants to know, what LMS do you use with OdysseyWare? I know you mentioned Moodle, but can you sort of expound upon your reasons for why you chose Moodle to fit with your program?
Well, we chose Moodle for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's open source. If you host it yourself, it's free. What you have is the cost of an administrator and the server space. And you know, we run OdysseyWare and Apex and several of those other self-paced digital curriculum components, but we don't necessarily run them directly through Moodle. We pay for those services and put students in there as needed. Those are mostly used for our credit recovery components within the district.
Great, thank you. Last question, and this, I think both of you could speak on this. What guidance does Google or your school district provide to school systems regarding information literacy and a critical approach to what people find on the web?
Well, for us in North Carolina, we've got a set of information technology standards by grade level from kindergarten through 12th grade that teachers are aware of, and it's a portion of their curriculum, just like any other subject that they teach. We provide teachers with a lot of resources, and some that are actually kind of fun with elementary students or even middle school students. Sites like Tree Octopus is an enlightening search for a child, because they go to a site that's been created by a teacher for a fictitious animal, has a Latin name, how to contribute to save the Northwest Pacific tree octopus, and then we make students, you know, have the revelation that this is not a real animal, and that you can post anything that you want to on the internet. So one of the first lessons about research is to cross-reference everything that you search with more than one source, and we spend a lot of time working with teachers and students to understand that.
Andrew, would you like to add anything about what Google might do for
Christian,
literacy?
will you please repeat the question one more time just so I make sure I answer it?
No problem. What guidance does Google provide to school systems regarding information literacy and a critical approach to what people find on the web?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. So as far as what Google can do, I mean, I think maybe the first step is that Google has done a lot to make information accessible. So I think a big piece is just going online and like searching for resources. And what my team and I really aim to do a lot of times in some capacities is being best practice educators. So I know for any district that has above 3,000 students, you do have a direct Google contact. So if that's the case, you can reach out to one of us and we can put you in contact with other districts or share some best practices, some best content, best resources that we've seen used by other districts. Or another thing that I would think is like reaching out to your districts around you. We have something called Google Educator Groups, which I think is a really fantastic resource for educators, and that allows educators to get together with similar, like-minded, and I think like really passionate individuals in their area, and they can share resources and best practices, bounce ideas off each other, and they're really just a great place to meet people and be inspired. So that's another good idea as well.
Great answer to a great question. Thank you, Andrew and Scott. With that, we'll conclude this afternoon's webinar. I'd like to thank you all for attending and for sitting with us as we resolved our audio issues. If we didn't get to your questions, you can tweet or email your questions to our speakers using the Twitter handles that you see on screen. And for those of you who are looking to receive certificates of attendance, please keep an eye out for our follow-up email with a downloadable PDF. Thank you again, and see you next time.